Hello, and welcome to another Toolbox DIY how-to video. I'm Chris, and today I'm going to demonstrate how to install a recessed light. I'm going to focus on a new construction fixture, but I'll talk a little bit about retrofit fixtures as well. The difference between the two is quite simple. If you already have a ceiling installed, you'll need to go for the retrofit. If you don't have your ceiling installed, then you can use the new construction fixture. First and foremost, let's talk about safety. Please check with your local regulations and codes to make sure that you can perform this work on your own. Also, please check to see if you need a permit. If you're not comfortable doing electrical work, please don't hesitate to hire an electrician. There's no shame in that. But if you are comfortable with it, let's get started. First, I'm going to go over the tools you'll need and the materials you'll need. Then I'm going to talk about how to select your light fixture and your trim. If you're not interested in that and you want to jump right to the installation, please go ahead. Press skip ahead here and it'll take you right there. Okay, let's start with tools. Today we'll be using a hammer to install the hanger bars to the ceiling joists. If you choose to use screws, you can use a driver such as this with a Phillips bit. We're also going to be using wire strippers and diagonal or side cutters. You might need a Phillips screwdriver, a hand screwdriver, and if you're using the retrofit fixture, you're going to need either a circle saw attachment for a drill, or you can use a drywall saw such as this. I would also recommend a stud finder so you can locate your ceiling joists. And now the materials that you'll need. We have the actual light fixture itself. In this case, we're installing new construction, as I've stated, and that comes with 4 hanger bars. They are pairs. Trim for our light. Wire nuts or push wire connectors. You'll need 3 per light. You might also need some wire staples if you need to get your wire moved out of the way and secured after you're done installing this. Now, there are a couple of factors to consider when you're choosing the type of fixture that you want to install. First, start with your trim. This is what you're going to have to look at after you have the light installed. I recommend picking the trim that you want and then matching it with the fixture that's appropriate for that trim. So here I've gone with a 4-inch square trim, and it's mated up with this 4-inch recessed fixture. Typically, the trim manufacturer has to match the manufacturer of the actual fixture. Sometimes you can get away with using another manufacturer's trim, but it's not guaranteed to work. So if you go down that route, you might want to test it out before you install anything. Second, there are basically 2 types of fixtures. One is IC rated and one is non-IC rated. IC rated means that it can go in a ceiling that has insulation. It's got a little more protection to keep the insulation from melting or burning, things that you don't really want. If you don't have insulation, you can buy the non-IC rated fixture, such as this one. The same holds true for the retrofit. They have IC and non-IC rated. Let me talk a little bit about the retrofit fixture. The basic concept is that you drill a hole in the ceiling that's not near ceiling joists. You pull your wire down, you wire it here, and after you have it wired, this goes through the hole, turns, and goes up. These clips are what hold it to the ceiling material. Typically it'll be drywall, but it doesn't have to be. After that, you install your trim and you're done. It's quite simple. The challenging part is getting the hole in the ceiling. Now, you can use a drywall saw such as this. You find the location you want the light. I would recommend using a compass to draw out the line, and then you can use this saw to cut out the circle. Or you can buy a circle cutter, typically found in the electrical section of your home improvement store. It's a very handy tool, but they are kind of expensive. It's not really necessary and maybe not worth the expense if you don't plan on cutting a lot of holes. But if you do have a lot of lights to install, it may not be a bad investment. But before you cut your hole in the ceiling, you need to check where the ceiling joists are. I would recommend using a stud finder to make sure that your location where you want the light does not fall on one of those ceiling joists. And also you want to make sure that not only it falls between them, but there's no other cross braces in the way to prevent you from inserting this into the ceiling. Okay, let's move on to the new construction. The new construction fixture will come with hanger bars. And on this particular fixture, the hanger bars can go on these sides, the short sides, or on the long sides. It doesn't matter which sides you choose, as long as you can put the fixture where you want it. For me, my decision is based on where I want the connection box. I want it in the direction of where my wires are coming from. So I'm going to install them on the short side, and you'll see more of that when we go up and get this thing actually installed. I almost forgot one important aspect to the hanger bars. These hanger bars come with nails. You can also find hanger bars that are meant for screws. I would actually recommend the screws. That way, if you get your lights installed and you don't like the position of them or the location of them, you can back the screws out and change it easily. It's a little more difficult with the nails. These are nails. I'm going to go ahead and install them that way, but don't hesitate to use screws if that's going to be more convenient for you. Okay, it's time to go outside and get this fixture installed. I'll show you how to wire it, and then after my ceiling is installed, we'll come back and we'll install the trim. Okay, the first thing we want to do is install our hanger bars. As I previously said, I'm going to do it on the short side. Now you want to make sure that the brackets are pointing this direction. You don't want them pointing down, because then they'll be in the way. One thing I want to make note of is I find it easier on the ceiling to mark where I want this bracket to go. So right now I have my center mark marked on the joist, and I'll show that in a second. Here's the center mark of the light. So I want to measure from this bracket to that center mark. That is 3 7/8 inches. Now I'm going to go up and mark where this is supposed to be installed on the ceiling, and then we'll install the fixture. Okay, here's my center mark. So now I want to make another mark that is 3 7/8 inches to the right of that, so I'll know exactly where to put the hanger bar. That'll be the first fastener that I'll drive in. All right, let's get it installed. I'm putting the edge of this hanger bar bracket right on my mark, and my center line, I don't know if you can see this, my center line matches up with the center line marking of the light fixture. Now these are a little difficult to hold up, so I push it all the way to the joist here to kind of hold it in place while I drive the nail in about 2/3 of the way. I don't drive it in all the way because if I need to move it, it's kind of difficult to get out. If you're using screws, you can drive it in all the way, since those are easy to back out. Do the other side. Now you don't need to mark where the other side of the bars go. You just want to make sure they're straight and they don't bind. You want the light fixture to be able to move back and forth so you can make slight adjustments for your location. Last one, and what I do before I install the last one, I confirm that the light can move. It can, so that's exactly where I want to drive this nail. Next, let's talk about the positioning of the light. There is a screw, I hope you can see this. There's a screw here that you can tighten down to lock the movement of the light. They don't always work really well, so what I like to do is take some pliers and pinch these guides to keep the light from moving on the bars. All right, so what I'm going to do next, I'm going to go ahead and drive these in all the way, and then I'm going to show you what I do to put these in the right location, and then we'll get it locked into place and we'll move on to wiring. Okay, I'm actually doing multiple lights as part of this project, so I created what's called a story stick. It's basically just a stick that has a measurement made on it. All of the lights I'm installing are the same distance from the edge of this overhang that's in this direction. So to position my light, I made this measurement on the story stick so my light marking lines up with this edge of the circle of the light. So right there is where I want it. With that in place, I'm now going to pinch these guides so the light does not move on the hanger bars. I'll do it over here as well. Just double check and make sure that didn't move on us. Perfect. Okay, now let's move on to the wiring of this. One thing I didn't mention in my introduction is that these light fixtures already have push-in wire connectors. So all we need to do is remove the sheathing from about 6 inches of the wire, strip the tips, feed it through an entrance point of this box that might be difficult to see. Once we get it in there, just wire it up and put the cover back on. One safety note: please do not work with live wiring. This should be shut off at the breaker so there's no current that can flow through these wires. Working with live wires can result in a very bad day. I'm going to go ahead and strip these wires now because I find it's a little easier outside of the box. I take off about 1/2 inch. Now, in your light, if you have knockout holes and that's all you have, you may need to get some plastic push-in connectors. These snap into the knockout holes. You push the wire through them and it holds the wire. The wire can't pull out. And it also keeps it from moving around. In this particular fixture, I have these smaller knockouts. Also have a piece of metal here that pushes down like a flap. When the wire goes through, it closes back up. So if you try pulling the wire, it won't come out. So I'm going to take advantage of those since they're available. My cable securely in there, now I can make my connections. Neutral to neutral. You just push right in and they lock. Very easy. Ground to ground and hot to hot. Now we just want to tuck these back in the box so they're out of the way. And put this little access panel door back on. Okay, now what I like to do, I want to make sure I did this right. So I'm going to put a bulb in, turn the breaker on, flip the switch and make sure that these work, because I'd really hate for the ceiling to get installed and my lights not to work. One other note, if you have a lot of extra wire, I've got a little bit here, you might want to take a staple and secure that wire against one of the joists. I don't really have a need to. I'm anchored over here, so I'm in pretty good shape. For some trim, the light bulb goes in after the trim is installed. For this particular trim, the light bulb goes in first. And then there's a retaining pin to keep the light bulb seated in the trim. Now since this has a swivel, and I want it to swivel this way, I need to make sure I install the trim like this. All right, the key is making sure that all 3 clips, or 4, go inside the can and not sneak between the roofing material and the can. There we go. That's it. Well, there you have it. That's how you install recessed light. It is a relatively easy project. I think the most frustrating part is getting the hanger bars installed with the light up there without having the thing crash down on your head. I've actually had it happen. It's not very much fun. But I learned my lesson after the first one, and I got the hang of it. I think you will too. Well, I want to say thanks for tuning in today and watching how to install recessed light. Please stay tuned for more videos from Toolbox DIY.